certain things that are foolish to embarrass people and to put people in a situation where maybe they can't do things. But we find that people gave whatever they could give that the tabernacle of the Lord might be built. All right? They gave their earrings, they gave their jewels, they gave whatever they had. Now remember, when they came out of Egypt, God had given them all of that. God made caused the Egyptians to give them all kinds of stuff. Get out of here. Here, take this. Just go. But when they went, it was a time where God was establishing them as a nation and wanted them to remember Him in the sense that God wanted to be in the midst of them because He was their God and He was going to lead them and guide them, direct them. He had given them His commandments that they would follow, establish themselves with God and with one another, how they should treat God, how they should treat one another. That's what the commandments were for. All right? And so we find them doing these things as they gave to the upbuilding of God's house. Okay? And again, this wasn't a permanent house, but this was a house of worship. Nonetheless, it was a place where God wanted to be in the midst of them. You could have a house built, but if God is in the midst of it, you just got a house built. But God wanted to dwell in the midst of His people. And in order for Him to dwell, they had to follow His instruction specifically, and they had to do it accordingly, as He had commanded them to do. Yeah. All right? Then we go on, and we see in 2 Corinthians, as we look at that particular scripture, before we go that, we find that as we look and we see in verse 25, 35 and 25, it says, and all the women that were wise-hearted did spin with their hands, and they brought what they spun, both purple and scarlet and linen, and all the women whose heart stirred them up in wisdom spun goat hairs. And so these people, and when you continue reading, these people were skillful in the things that they were doing. All right? And God blessed them. God blessed them. He gave them wisdom and understanding in how to do these things. Because God had a specific way He wanted His house built. The furnishings and all that was to be made. The candlesticks and all of the things that they were to offer. Incense, the burning of incense. These people were skillful in doing all of these things, and God used them in that way, right? Yeah. In verse 30 it says, and Moses said unto the children of Israel, see, the Lord hath called by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, and of the tribe of Judah, and He had filled him with the Spirit of God in wisdom and understanding and knowledge and all manner of workmanship. So God had established this man as the what we would call the general contractor, the overseer of all the work. All right? When this church was built, there was a general contractor who oversaw the plumbing, the electrician, the carpentry work, the metal work, the sheet metal work. One man was in charge of making sure all these people done this according to the way it was specified by the plan. Cement work, the foundational work, all of these things, one man, the general contractor, was in charge making sure that the other people did it according to the rules. That was his job, to make sure all the other ones did it according to the rules. Him, and God also chose with him, who was the other one? There was one other one God chose with him to oversee the work. And He gave them wisdom in doing so. And it goes on, He said, not only did He do that, but He says, in verse 34, it says, He had put in his heart that he may teach both he and, there's the other guy, Abihobadad, the son of Asterimuch of the tribe of Dan, them had He filled with wisdom of heart to work all the manner of work. Okay? So God had been chosen to oversee all the work that people were going to do, and He had people skilled in craftsmanship to do all of this that God wanted done.
Yeah.
All right? And so we find the congregation giving. And when you continually read about their giving, you'll find out that they gave more than it was necessary. And they had to stop them from giving because they gave too much. They gave more than enough to make sure the work was completed.
Yeah.
All right? They didn't do like some people do today. You want to give, and they steal your money. All right? Because they're all about money. But this was about worshiping God and doing God's work and taking care of the people of God. All right? And so we go on in the next section of our lesson. Our lesson deals with the fact that Paul, on his third missionary journey, because of the great persecution that was in Jerusalem, and many of them had to flee for their lives, and many of the saints that were not well off, many of them had need. There were people coming into the congregation who were poor, who had need, and we find that Paul established a committee of people to go and glean from the church people money to support those who were needy. The widows, those who didn't have men in the home to take care of them, the orphans, children who didn't have parents and for whatever reason, and those who were poor, those who couldn't work, and whatever the condition was. So Paul, as he went on his third missionary journey, we find him speaking to the churches and asking them for funds that they might help those who had need in Jerusalem.
Amen.
All right? And so we find that Paul, as he spoke to this congregation in Corinthians, he reminded them of the work the Macedonian church had done. They had given their best to help the saints in need in Jerusalem. So Paul was saying, listen, we want you to also give. You give as the Lord has blessed you to give. All right? And as he speaks to them about giving, he said, but I say, he that soweth sparingly shall also reap sparingly. So if you want to be, how we say it in our own language today, you want to be stingy about what you do, don't expect much from it.
That's right.
Okay? Don't expect much from it. I'm reminded of Jesus when he was watching the people giving their alms, and there was a lady who came and she had 1 pence. We would say, well, she had a penny. Let's say she had 1 penny. And she gave, and there were those who would come in and they were putting money in the offering, and they were putting money in the offering. But this lady came and she put her penny in the offering. And sometimes we look at people and we say, oh, they don't need to give that much. But we become judges of other people. But Jesus asked his disciples, now, which one do you think gave the most? And see, the attitude and the way we give says a lot about us. And God recognizes our attitude in our giving. Okay? And he said, give whatever your heart tells you to do. All right? You're not giving for show, you're not giving to be recognized, but you're giving from your heart. You're giving what you can, the best that you can, right? And so, don't do like Ananias and Sapphira, who decided that they would sell their land and give, but then decided after they sold their land and got all this money, they said within themselves, we're not going to give all of it. We're going to keep some of it. They agreed with each other. But when they presented it like they had given all that they had sold to the Lord. But God knows all things, because God looks at the heart. And Paul gave him a chance. They said, is that it? He said, yeah. He said, why are you allowed the devil to fool you and to trick you and to make you think that you can fool the Lord, to be deceptive with God? It was theirs to keep. They just had to say, well, we kept some. It was theirs. But they pretended that they had gave all. And we know the story. They both died. He died, and then she came around. He asked her, gave her a chance. She lied, and she died. All right? So we don't want to be deceptive. Say, well, I'll give this, and you don't really give what you say you're going to give. You know? Give what the Lord has blessed you to give. Give what's in your heart to give. All right? Don't be stingy about giving, because he that gives sparingly, he'll also reap sparingly.
That's right.
All right? God will bless you. You know, and when we say that, we're not playing. We're talking the truth. God will bless you.
Yes, He will.
All right. Give and it shall be given unto you. Good measure shaken down together will the Lord give. Right? That don't mean you're going to be rich. Because God has many ways of blessing us. And when we look in our lesson, we'll see God has many ways of blessing us. Okay? He goes on and he says, and he which soweth bountifully shall also reap bountifully. All right? So if you have a heart, a giving heart, and you just love to give, God said, I'll bless you. God, we won't go without. Because God has his way of blessing us. All right? He has his way of blessing us, providing for us. And he said, every man according as he has what? Purpose in his heart. So whatever you purpose in your heart, that's what you should do. Okay? Because God knows what's in our heart. And he says, so let him give, not grudgingly, all right, not half-heartedly. You know, not of, he goes on and said, not of necessity, not of an obligation, not forcefully. You know, some people, you know, they call for a line, and they'll say, oh, well, we want everybody in this line to, first of all, they'll make you stand up. And once all the missionaries stand up, all the preachers stand up, all the elders stand up, all the pastors stand up, right? They make you stand up, and they say, we want all the pastors to give this amount, this one to give that amount, all that. And if you don't have it, they will embarrass you in front of everybody. That's not right. That's not how God wants us to give. That's why we don't call lines in this church. God didn't say to call lines. Right? He said, give as the Lord has blessed you to give. Nobody going to twist your arm and tell you, give this amount, you know. And now when we have special needs, we ask for an amount of money, but we don't tell you what to give. You give as the Lord has blessed. All right? That's how we do it. That's how God did it. And he said to the disciples, who do you think gave the most? And they looking at the guys who was putting all the money in. They said, well, they did. They said, no. They said they gave out of their abundance. They have enough to give. But she gave all that she had. So God looks at our attitude in giving, because attitude makes a lot. He said, those who are of a willing heart. Nobody wants something that somebody's made them give it to you. You don't want nothing like that. Look, if I got to make you give it to me, I don't want it. Because I'm saying I put you in jeopardy. You may give me something out of your necessity. I don't expect you to pay to rob Peter to pay Paul. You understand what I'm saying? That's not how God wants us to do. He wants us to give as the Lord has blessed us to give. Amen. And so we find, as Paul says, don't do it grudgingly. Let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loveth a what? Cheerful gift. God loves it when we give out of our love and our concern for each other. All right? God will bless us. He recognized that. He recognized our attitude in our giving. Okay? Then he goes on and says, and God is able, not only does he love a cheerful giver, but God is able to make all grace, and when we talk about all grace, we talk about all God's favor. Remember, grace is unmerited favor, right? And when we talk about the grace of God, we talk about God's favor upon our lives. So God is able to make all grace or all favor, when he speaks of abound, meaning increase. All right? The grace of God, increase. God is able to make all his favor increase. All right? Increase toward you. Okay. All right, so God is able to provide whatever we need.
Amen.
Is what He's saying. He's able to provide whatever we need. When we give, don't worry. God doesn't overlook what we're doing. He's able to provide for us.
Amen.
All right, to increase towards you, that ye always having what? All sufficiency, all that you need. When we talk about sufficiency, that means you got everything you need. God is able to make His grace, His favor abound, increase toward us in everything we need.
Amen.
Yes.
To do what? In all things. All things that pertain to life and godliness. All right? That we may abound to every good work. That we may what? Increase in every good work. And see, when we're willing to give, God is able to help us. So we can continually do these things. That means we lack nothing. All right? As we give, He gives. We give more, He gives more. It increases. As we increase, He increases.
Yes.
That's what He's able to do for us when we're willing to do it God's way. So it's important to give. Give as unto the Lord. And when we give, that's what we do. We give as unto the Lord. Not looking for anything in return, but God has promised that He would bless us. Not give, looking for somebody else to give back to you. That's not the right attitude either. But we give because the Lord say, more blessed to give than to receive. Right?
Amen.
He will bless us. Yes, Sister.
Other day, what if you give just because everybody else is giving, but it's a grudge and you don't want to give?
God doesn't accept. You know, God knows what's in our heart. And this is what our lesson is showing us. God says those who are willing to give. So, what does that say? Maybe everybody could not give, but whatever they could do, they did. Some gave their gold, some gave their jewels, some gave whatever they need. Some gave silver, some had hair, some had other things. You know, but whatever they had, they gave. And that's what working together is all about. Do what you could do. You know, some can't work, but they can give money. There's many different ways of supporting an effort. Right?
Was the tabernacle built for God or was it built for His people?
The tabernacle was built for God, but He wanted His people to do it. All right? God wanted a place where He could dwell in the midst of His people.
Amen.
And His people had to be willing to provide this place, as God commanded Moses, so they could dwell in the midst of Him. It was a unified effort to show not only their necessity to have a place of worship for the Lord, but their desire to want God to be in the midst of them. And so he said to them, build this tabernacle. And I want skillful people, people that I will put the spirit of wisdom and understanding and cunning into their lives to help make this place come to fruition. They came out of Egypt. They were among all kinds of gods of Egypt. God proved Himself to be the true and living God. But as He traveled with them, He had no place to be with them. So the tabernacle was a place that was set up for Him to dwell in the midst of them. Because remember, He promised to take them to the land that flowed with milk and honey. But He wanted to be in the midst of them. All right. Not only did God want to speak to Moses in the mountain, but God wanted to speak to His people in their worship toward Him. Now, in order to worship God, you have to have the place of worship, right? You got to have a place of worship. But God wanted this to be built out of their love and their concern to have Him in the midst of them. Okay. He wanted to be in the midst of His people. He wanted a place where they could come and worship Him. God wants to be worshipped. He said, I created you for my glory. All right? God wants a place of worship. A place where He can come and be in the midst of His people. Okay?
Amen.
So, what they did as unto the Lord. And what we do as unto the Lord. Because we want God in our presence. We want God in our midst.
Amen.
And anything we do for the Lord.
Amen.
Shows that we love the Lord and we want God's presence in our midst. Now, as believers today, we want God's presence in our life. We know that God just don't dwell in the building. God dwells in our hearts and our souls. So we want to have the proper attitude for Him to continue to dwell within our hearts and our souls. And as we deal with one another as human beings, we deal in the sense of the way our attitude is toward one another and what we do toward one another and how we treat one another. When God gave Moses the commandments, the first three, love the Lord with all your heart, and the rest of it was how they deal with each other. Shall not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, shall not covet thy neighbor's wife, shall not covet thy neighbor's good. Honor your father and your mother. That was for us. The other three was for Him. How we should recognize Him. No other God before me. Love the Lord with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength. Keeping Him first. And when we keep Him first, all the rest of that automatically comes into line.
I got a question. I got a question, Elder Day. Suppose if someone don't know how to get God in, how would they get God in their presence, or what you just spoke about? You spoke about it, but how does someone come to that?
To have God in your presence is to recognize that you have sinned. Okay? And in the recognition of your sinning, you must be sorry for your sin. Genuinely sorry for your sin. And ask God to come into your life. You got to acknowledge that I'm a sinner, Lord. I need forgiveness. And I want you to come into my life. And if we're sincere with the Lord, God will do it. Right? That's how we get Him into our lives, into our presence. Because He's everywhere. He's always here. But if we want Him in our lives, we have to acknowledge, Lord, I'm a sinner. Because the Bible says all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. And we must recognize that we are sinners. And that we have need of repentance. And that's how we get God in our lives. Right? Okay?